Hey guys, tonight we're digging deeper. We're going past the Great Wall, beyond the silent vigil of the Terracotta Army, and into a mystery that isn't carved from stone or written on scrolls of silk. We're hunting for a ghost of technology, an intellectual marvel so far ahead of its time that history seems to have forgotten it ever existed. We're on the trail of the vanished crystal calculators of ancient China. Forget the abacus, forget counting rods. The truth is, there are whispers, fragmented texts, and archaeological anomalies that hint at something far more sophisticated, a device that could map the stars, design empires, and predict the future, not with beads on a wire, but with captured light itself. And let me know in the comments, what's the most incredible piece of lost technology you've ever heard of? It's always fascinating to see what forgotten wonders haunt your imaginations. Now, turn down the lights. Let the modern world fade away. We're not just learning about history tonight. We're about to become a part of it. Let's step into the quiet hum of a world that has long since turned to dust. Congratulations. You are an apprentice scribe, and the year is 52 BCE. The world you know is the sprawling, magnificent, and ruthlessly ordered capital of the Han Dynasty, Chang'an. This is the center of the civilized world, a city of towering rammed earth walls, bustling market avenues, and the serene, imposing palaces of the Son of Heaven, the Emperor himself. Your world is a single, cavernous chamber within the Imperial Ministry of Works, a place known as the Hall of 1,000 Scrolls. And it is a universe made entirely of bamboo, ink, and silence. The day begins before the sun has even touched the city's watchtowers. You awaken on a thin sleeping mat in the scribe's dormitory, a long, drafty hall where the snores of 24 other apprentices rise and fall in a gentle, rhythmic tide. The air is cold and carries the permanent, pervasive scent of the ministry. The dry, dusty sweetness of aging bamboo, the sharp, almost metallic tang of raw ink minerals, and the faint, smoky perfume of the oil lamps that will soon be lit. A bronze bell is struck 3 times, its sharp, clean tone cutting through the pre-dawn gloom, a signal that your day of labor has begun. You rise, fold your mat with practiced precision, and dress in the simple, drab robes of a junior functionary. In the Hall of 1,000 Scrolls, words are for writing, not for wasting. Your place is at a long, low table of dark, polished wood, a table scarred with the ink stains and frustrated carvings of generations of apprentices before you. Your tools are your entire world. A set of brushes, their handles worn smooth by your own fingers, their tips made from the fine, soft hair of a wolf's throat. A grinding stone, its surface worn into a gentle concavity. And an ink stick, a solid block of compressed pine soot and animal glue, so black it seems to drink the light. Your first task of the day, and every day, is to make the ink. You place a few drops of clean, cold water from a ceramic ewer onto the stone and begin to grind the ink stick in a slow, circular motion. Too fast, and the ink will be coarse and gritty. Too slow, and it will be pale and watery. Your master, the senior archivist, can tell the quality of a scribe's character by the quality of his ink. Yours must be perfect, as black as a moonless night, as smooth as silk, and fragrant with the faint, resinous scent of the pine. The hall itself is awe-inspiring and oppressive in equal measure. It is a vast, timber-framed structure, its soaring ceiling lost in shadow. The walls are not walls. They are shelves, rising 40 feet into the air, crammed with tens of thousands of bamboo scrolls. Each scroll is a bundle of hundreds of thin, vertical bamboo slips, painstakingly inscribed with characters. They contain everything: tax records from the farthest provinces, astronomical observations from the Imperial Observatory, military logistics for the garrisons along the Silk Road, census data, architectural plans for canals and palaces, and the collected wisdom of the great philosophers. It is the memory of the empire, a forest of codified knowledge, and you are one of the termites, silently, tirelessly consuming and reproducing it. Your work for the past month has been a soul-crushing exercise in precision. You are copying a treatise on grain storage. A senior scribe unrolls the master scroll, and you, along with 5 other apprentices, begin the process of replication. You dip your brush, draw it to a perfect point on the edge of the inkstone, and begin to paint the characters onto a blank bamboo slip. Each character is a miniature work of art, a dance of controlled energy. The vertical strokes must be straight as a taut bowstring. A single misplaced stroke, a single drop of errant ink, and the entire slip is discarded. Your shoulders ache, your eyes burn from the strain of focusing on the tiny, complex characters, and your fingers are permanently stained with black ink. This is the technology you know. This and the counting board, a simple wooden frame with lines upon which small bamboo rods are placed to calculate sums. It is effective, reliable, and has served the empire for centuries. You believe it is the pinnacle of calculation. You have no reason to think otherwise. But there is a mystery in the Hall of 1,000 Scrolls, an enigma that walks among you. His name is Master Wei. He is not the senior archivist. His title is obscure, Imperial Calibrator. He is an old man, impossibly old, with a face like a dried riverbed, a sparse white beard that hangs to his chest, and eyes that seem to hold the quiet, distant light of the stars themselves. He occupies a small, secluded workshop in the deepest, most secure sector of the ministry complex, a place no apprentice has ever been allowed to enter. Master Wei's abilities are the subject of fearful, whispered legends among the apprentices. When the imperial architects were designing the new Kunming Lake, a vast man-made reservoir for the emperor's naval exercises, they were stumped. The calculations for the volume of earth to be moved, the precise angles of the canal feeds, and the required strength of the retaining walls were so complex that it would have taken a team of 20 master accountants with their counting rods 3 full months to complete. The project was falling behind schedule, and the emperor's displeasure was a palpable threat. Master Wei was summoned. He disappeared into his workshop for a single day. The master accountants checked his work, their faces a mixture of disbelief and terror. They found no errors. It was impossible. It was sorcery. Another time, a comet appeared in the western sky, an omen of great uncertainty. The court astrologers were in a panic, unable to predict its trajectory or its meaning. Would it bring famine, war, or the death of a prince? Master Wei was consulted. He spent a night in his workshop and produced a star chart that not only predicted the comet's path with unerring accuracy, but also foretold its disappearance to the exact hour. The emperor was pleased. Master Wei was not a man, he was a walking miracle, or perhaps a demon in the guise of a scholar. He never used a counting board. No one had ever seen him perform a single calculation. His results simply appeared, perfect and fully formed, as if plucked from the mind of a god. One afternoon, as the sun casts long golden bars of light through the high latticed windows of the hall, the senior archivist approaches your table. His presence alone is enough to make your heart hammer against your ribs. He does not speak to you. He speaks over you, to the air itself. The calibrator requires an assistant. Your hand is steady, your ink is clean. You will go. To be chosen by Master Wei is an unimaginable honor, a chance to glimpse the source of his legendary power. It is also, perhaps, a death sentence. Stories are told of apprentices who went into Master Wei's workshop and were never seen again, their minds supposedly shattered by the secrets they witnessed. You gather your brushes, your hands trembling so violently you can barely hold them. You follow the senior archivist out of the great hall, leaving the familiar world of ink and bamboo behind. The journey to Master Wei's workshop is a journey into the heart of silence and secrecy. You pass through a series of guarded courtyards and locked gates, each one leading you deeper into the ministry's restricted core. The noise of the city fades away, replaced by the sound of your own footsteps on the polished stone. The air grows cooler. You are entering a place set apart from the world. Finally, you arrive at a simple, unadorned wooden door, guarded by two imperial soldiers in full lacquer armor, their faces impassive as stone. The senior archivist bows to them, and they open the door, revealing not the expected clutter of a scholar's office, but a space that takes your breath away. The workshop is a large, circular room, and unlike the rest of the ministry, it is spotlessly clean. The air is still and cool, and it smells faintly of ozone and polished bronze. There are no scrolls here. The walls are covered not with shelves, but with vast, intricate charts. One is a celestial map, the constellations rendered in silver leaf on a background of black lacquer, so detailed that you can see the faint smudges of the distant star clouds. Another chart is a dizzying array of geometric patterns, lines and angles, a silent, complex language you cannot begin to decipher. In the center of the room, on a heavy table of black stone, rests an object draped in a covering of heavy imperial yellow silk. But the most astonishing feature of the room is the ceiling. It is a perfect dome, and at its apex is a single, large, perfectly round opening to the sky above. Positioned beneath it is a complex apparatus of polished bronze mirrors, lenses, and adjustable arms, all designed to catch the sunlight from the oculus and direct it with pinpoint precision to the stone table in the center of the room. He does not turn as you enter. "You are the boy with the steady hand," he says, his voice a dry rustle, like wind through dead leaves. "Your steadiness will be required. But it is your mind that will be tested. Not to your fellow apprentices, not to your family, not even in your own dreams. The knowledge in this room protects the mandate of heaven. To divulge it is to commit treason of the highest order. Do you understand?" "I understand, Master. We shall see," he whispers. He turns to the object on the table. With a slow, ceremonial gesture, he takes a corner of the silk covering and pulls it away. You were expecting a scroll, an elaborate counting board, perhaps some strange artifact of bronze or jade. You were not prepared for what you saw. On the black stone table rests a device of breathtaking, alien beauty. It is a rectangular frame, about the size of a large book, crafted from gleaming dark bronze. But inside the frame is not wood or bamboo. It is a lattice, a three-dimensional grid of what appears to be pure, flawless rock crystal. Dozens, perhaps hundreds, of small, perfectly cut prisms, cylinders and lenses, each one faceted with impossible precision, are suspended in a complex interlocking arrangement. They are held in place by a web of fine golden wires, the entire structure so delicate it looks as though a single breath could shatter it. It is not a tool. It is a piece of jewelry crafted by the gods. The ancients called it a Lingxuan pan, Master Wei says softly. A numinous calculation plate. We call it a crystal calculator. He gestures for you to come closer. As you approach, you see that the black stone table beneath the device is not solid. It is inscribed with a grid of incredibly fine silver lines, marked with numerals and symbols you have never seen before. Master Wei then moves to the apparatus of mirrors under the oculus. He makes a series of minute adjustments, turning polished knobs and sliding brass arms. A single, pure, brilliant beam of sunlight, as sharp as a needle, lances down from the ceiling, strikes a mirror, and is directed toward the crystal lattice. What happens next is pure magic. It is a violation of the natural order of the world. The single beam of light enters the first crystal prism and explodes. It splits into a dozen smaller beams, each a different, vibrant color. These beams then strike other prisms and lenses, refracting, splitting, and recombining in a silent, instantaneous cascade of light. The interior of the crystal lattice becomes a contained universe of pure, dancing energy. For a breathtaking moment, you are staring into the heart of a captured rainbow. The chaotic dance resolves, and a pattern of light and shadow projects from the bottom of the device onto the silver grid on the stone table below. It is not a random splash of light. It is a clear, sharp pattern of illuminated squares and symbols. Master Wei looks at you, his ancient eyes gauging your reaction. The Imperial engineers wish to know the precise volume of a new canal with a parabolic curve, a length of 237 li, and a variable depth. With counting rods, it would take a team of 10 men a full month. I have just provided the answer. He points to the illuminated grid. You stare, your mind unable to process what you have just witnessed. There was no movement, no counting, no human intervention. Just light, crystal, and a silent, instantaneous answer. It wasn't a tool that aided calculation. It was a tool that was the calculation. An idea, a problem, translated into light, solved by crystal, and presented as an answer. This, Master Wei says, his voice barely a whisper, is how the empire is built. This is how the stars are charted. This is how the mandate of heaven is maintained. Not with armies, not with walls, but with light. You stand frozen, a humble apprentice scribe in a secret room, staring at a machine that should not exist. The familiar world of ink and bamboo has shattered, replaced by a universe of impossible complexity and terrifying power. The weight of the secret settles upon you, heavier than any stone, more binding than any law. You are no longer just a boy with a steady hand. You are now a guardian of the ghost, a keeper of the light, an acolyte in the temple of a technology that feels like divine revelation. And you know, with a certainty that chills you to the very marrow of your bones, that your life will never, ever be the same. You remained frozen, a statue of terrified awe carved from the silent, cool air of the workshop. Your mind, accustomed to the slow, methodical world of grinding ink and painting characters, was struggling to comprehend the impossible truth before you. The light on the grid below the crystal lattice was not fading. It held its position, a silent, luminous sentence written in a language you could not read, yet understood with a terrifying primal clarity. It was an answer. The months of labor you had witnessed from the Empire's finest accountants, their faces etched with concentration as they manipulated their counting rods, their brows furrowed over endless scrolls of calculations. All of it now seemed like the fumbling of children in the dark. You had just witnessed the sun itself forced to perform arithmetic. Master Wei watched you, his ancient face impassive, but his eyes held a flicker of something you couldn't name. It wasn't pride. It was a profound, weary sadness, the look of a man who had carried an impossible secret for so long that he had forgotten what it felt like to be unburdened. "Breathe, boy," he said, his voice a dry rustle. The first sight of the numinous plate unseats the spirit. To approach this work, your mind must first be emptied of all you believe to be true. You finally managed to draw a breath, a ragged, shuddering gasp that seemed impossibly loud in the sacred silence of the room. You looked from the glowing grid on the stone table up to the crystal lattice, and then to the old man. 1,000 questions swirled in your mind, a chaotic storm of disbelief and wonder. How? What is it made of? But your throat was tight with fear, and the words would not form. As if hearing your silent questions, Master Wei gestured for you to approach the black stone table. It is merely a deeper understanding of the world's true nature. The sages and scribes of your hall believe the universe is written in characters on bamboo. They are not wrong, that they see only the shadow of the truth. It is a great, unending tapestry of resonance and harmony. What you call numbers are but the names we give to these harmonies. The curve of a riverbank, the unfurling of a fern, the path of a planet through the heavens. They all follow the same divine grammar. We do not invent mathematics, we merely learn to hear its music. He gently touched the bronze frame of the Lingshuan pan. This is not a tool of invention, it is a tool of translation. It translates our crude human questions into the pure language of the cosmos, which is light. And it translates the cosmos's perfect answer back into a form we can comprehend. He pointed to the intricate lattice of crystals. Each of these, he said, indicating a perfectly cut prism, is a word, a verb, a noun, an operator. They are carved from pure, flawless crystal, mined from the deep heart of the Kunlun Mountains, a place where the earth's energy is purest. It takes a master craftsman a lifetime to learn how to cut a single one of these lenses. The cutter must find the crystal's own resonant frequency and use precisely tuned vibrations to cleave the facets along their natural lines of energy. A single flawed cut, a single moment of imperfect concentration, and the crystal shatters into useless dust. There are fewer than a dozen men in the entire empire who possess this skill. You stared at the lattice, your mind reeling. This device was not manufactured, it was grown, coaxed into existence through a process that sounded more like a religious ritual than a craft. Each of the hundreds of prisms was the result of a lifetime of devotion. Your steady hand was why you were chosen, Master Wei said, his gaze returning to you. This instrument must be cleaned and calibrated daily. The slightest speck of dust, the slightest film of moisture from the air, can disrupt the flow of light and turn a perfect calculation into a catastrophic error. An error in a tax record might cost a village its grain. An error from this plate could cost the empire a war. He walked to a small, lacquered cabinet and produced a wooden box. Inside, resting on a bed of the finest, undyed silk, were a series of small, delicate tools, bronze tweezers with padded tips, brushes made from the downy feathers of a snow owl, and several soft, immaculately clean silk cloths. You will clean the primary refraction lens. You will touch only the bronze casing. Your skin must never make contact with the crystal. The oils from your hand, though invisible, would corrupt the light's path. You will use no pressure. You will simply guide the cloth over its surface as if polishing the surface of still water. Your heart seized. He was asking you to touch the heart of the miracle. He led you to the side of the device and pointed to a large central prism, a magnificent, multifaceted crystal that served as the entry point for the beam of sunlight. It pulsed with a faint internal luminescence, as if it were still holding the memory of the light that had passed through it. Your hands were trembling again. You, an apprentice who just that morning had been sweeping dirt from a stone floor, were now being asked to handle an artifact of almost divine power. You took the silk cloth. You took a deep breath, trying to channel the same meditative calm you used when grinding ink. You reached out, your hand moving with excruciating slowness, and gently touched the cloth to the surface of the crystal. The crystal was cool, but not cold. It felt alive. It seemed to hum with a silent, contained energy. As you drew the cloth across its perfectly smooth, impossibly clear surface, you felt a strange sensation, a faint vibration that traveled up your arm and into your chest, like the distant echo of a perfectly struck gong. You cleaned all 8 facets of the prism. Your entire being focused on that single point of contact, the universe shrinking to the space between the silk and the crystal. When you were finished, you pulled your hand back as if from a flame. You had not shattered the lens. You had not brought ruin upon the Han dynasty. Master Wei gave a single, slow nod. Good. Your spirit is calm, even in the face of the unknown. That is a rare quality. He then gestured toward a scroll that lay on a nearby table, held open by 2 polished river stones. Now, you will see the true purpose of the numinous plate. That scroll is a report from the governor of the western provinces. The spring rains have failed. The rivers are low. A great drought is upon them. Starvation leads to unrest. Unrest leads to rebellion, and rebellion leads to the loss of the mandate of heaven. The emperor's right to rule is written not in a divine book, but in the full bellies of his people. He unrolled another scroll, a vast, complex map showing the network of canals and roads that connected the empire, and the locations of the central grain reserves. The problem is not a lack of food, he explained. The central reserves are full. The problem is distribution. If we send too much grain, the reserves for the rest of the empire will be dangerously low, and we risk a shortage here in the capital. If we send too little, or send it too slowly, the people will die. We must calculate the precise amount of grain needed and the most efficient route for its transport, accounting for the speed of barges on canals of varying depth, the capacity of ox carts on mountain roads, and the spoilage that will occur over time. It is a calculation with 10,000 variables, a problem that would shatter the minds of the finest accountants. He walked to a different part of the workshop, to a wall covered with what looked like a collection of thin, translucent slits made of polished jade. Each slit was inscribed with the same strange geometric symbols you had seen on the stone grid. He selected 2 of them. This is how we pose the question, he said, holding them up. We do not use words. We use the pure concepts of number and relation. This slip represents the variable of population and need. This one represents the variable of distance and logistics. Then he moved the beam of sunlight from the oculus, directing it so that it passed directly through the inscribed jade before entering the primary refraction lens. Once again, the interior of the device exploded with a silent, chaotic storm of light. But this time, the light seemed different. It was more complex, the colors shifting and swirling in intricate, repeating patterns. It was as if the device were thinking, its crystalline mind processing the variables, weighing the 10,000 possibilities. You were no longer just an observer. You were a participant in a divine act of governance. The fate of millions of people 1,000 miles away was being decided in this silent room by a machine made of crystal and light. Master Wei slid the second jade slip into the slot, and the dance of light changed again, becoming even more intense, a furious, silent symphony. Finally, the light resolved, projecting its answer onto the grid below. The illuminated grid was a perfect miniature representation of the canal and road network, with specific routes glowing with a soft golden light and numerals appearing next to the major granaries, indicating the precise number of bushels to be released from each. It was a complete, perfect, and instantaneous solution to a problem of staggering complexity. It was not just a calculation. It was a divine decree, a path to harmony laid bare. Not our armies, not our walls, not our philosophies. It is this, the ability to see the pattern in the chaos, to find the path of least resistance, the most harmonious solution. We do not rule by force, we rule by balance. And this is the fulcrum. He then turned to you, and his eyes, for the first time, seemed to see not an apprentice, but a successor. The knowledge of the numinous plate is passed from one calibrator to the next. It is never written down. The knowledge must live in the mind of a single, trusted guardian. My time is coming to an end. The light in my own eyes grows dim. A new guardian must be trained. The weight of his words fell upon you, and you felt your knees weaken. A life of absolute secrecy, of immense power, and of crushing responsibility. To become the imperial calibrator was to become the silent, invisible pillar upon which the entire empire rested. Today you cleaned the lens, Master Wei said. Tomorrow you will learn the meaning of the symbols. You will learn the grammar of light. It will take you a lifetime. And you will spend that lifetime in this room, in silence. You will have no family, no friends outside these walls. The empire will be your only child. Harmony will be your only companion. Is this a life you are willing to accept? You looked at the glowing map on the stone table, a map that would save millions of lives. You looked at the impossible machine, a testament to a wisdom so profound it bordered on the divine. And you looked at the ancient master, who had sacrificed his entire life to be its keeper. You were just a boy, an apprentice scribe who had dreamed of little more than perfecting his calligraphy. To refuse would be to turn your back on the very source of order in the universe. You bowed, lower than you had ever bowed before, your forehead touching the cold, polished floor. "This servant accepts," you whispered, your voice trembling not with fear, but with the dawning, terrifying weight of your new purpose. You had entered this room as a boy who wrote words. The years that followed were a lifetime lived in a single, silent room. The world outside, the bustling, chaotic, vibrant world of Chang'an, ceased to exist for you. The changing of the seasons was marked not by the heat of summer or the chill of winter, but by the subtle shift in the angle of the sunbeam that lanced down from the oculus in the ceiling. The passage of time was measured not in days or weeks, but in the slow, meticulous mastery of the secrets of the Lingxuan Pan. You were no longer an apprentice scribe. Your only scripture was the grammar of light. Your training was relentless and unforgiving. It began not with the crystal calculator itself, but with the symbols. Master Wei unrolled vast ancient scrolls of silk texts so old they predated the Han, whispering of the Zhou and even the mythical Xia dynasties. They were covered in the strange geometric language you had seen on the jade slips and the stone grid. It was not a language of words, but of pure concepts. There was a symbol for rate of flow, another for cyclical harmony, another for gravitational stress, and hundreds more, each one a universe of meaning condensed into a few simple, elegant lines. Learning it was like learning to think in a new dimension. You spent years simply copying the symbols, meditating on their forms, until they were as ingrained in your mind as the characters of your own name. Then came the crystals. Master Wei taught you their properties, their individual personalities. Each of the hundreds of prisms and lenses had a name and a function. There was the dragon's eye, a multifaceted lens that performed exponential calculations. The weaver's shuttle, a series of cylindrical prisms that handled logistical arrays. The celestial river, a long, undulating crystal that modeled the flow of time. You learned to clean them, yes, but also to listen to them. You learned to feel the subtle shift in their resonant frequency that signaled a need for recalibration, a skill that could not be taught, only acquired through thousands of hours of silent, focused attention. A series of minor earthquakes had been reported in the southern provinces. The emperor's court was concerned, but not alarmed. You prepared the jade slips, slid them into the device, and directed the beam of light. The crystal lattice exploded into its silent symphony, but this time something was wrong. The light was chaotic, fractured, and instead of a clear answer, a discordant, jarring pattern of strobing, incoherent light projected onto the grid. Master Wei moved faster than you had ever seen him move. With a single, swift motion, he cut the beam of light, plunging the device into darkness. The hum ceased. The workshop was plunged into a dead, ringing silence. "The calculation failed," he whispered, his voice trembling with a mixture of awe and fear. "The stresses are too great. The problem is inharmonious. The plate cannot model its own destruction. It will be catastrophic, and it will strike the provincial capital." He sent his prediction to the emperor. The court astrologers scoffed. The imperial ministers hesitated, unwilling to order a costly and disruptive evacuation based on the arcane predictions of an old man. But the emperor, whose grandfather had been advised by Master Wei's own master, trusted the keeper of the light. He gave the order. The city was evacuated. It was a ghost town, its empty buildings collapsing into dust, but the people were safe, camped in the hills beyond. Master Wei's impossible prediction had saved them all. It was on that day that you truly understood the nature of your calling. You were not merely an accountant or an engineer. You were a seer. The Ling Xuan Pan did not just calculate, it divined. It read the patterns of the cosmos, the deep, hidden currents of fate, and translated them into warnings. Years turned into decades. Your hands, once stained with the black of ink, were now immaculately clean, perpetually ready to handle the sacred crystals. Your face, once young and curious, grew lean and serious, etched with the concentration of your work. Master Wei grew frail, his movements slowing, his voice becoming a faint, dry whisper. He spent more and more time simply sitting, watching you work, his role shifting from teacher to observer. He had passed the knowledge to you. The unwritten scroll of the numinous plate was now inscribed upon the landscape of your mind. The end of the era came not with a bang, but with a slow, inexorable decay. The Han dynasty, which had seemed as eternal as the stars, began to crumble from within. Weak emperors, corrupt court eunuchs, and peasant rebellions began to tear at the edges of the great tapestry of order. The Yellow Turban Rebellion swept across the land, a tide of desperate, starving peasants who believed the mandate of heaven had been lost. During this time of chaos, your work became more frantic, more essential than ever. You and the now ancient Master Wei worked day and night, calculating troop movements, optimizing supply lines, predicting the movements of rebel armies. The Ling Xuan Pan became the silent, secret weapon of the failing dynasty, the invisible hand holding back the flood of chaos. But it was a battle you were destined to lose. They were problems of chaos, of hatred, of human desperation. The light within the calculator grew more fractured, the answers more dissonant. The device could model the most efficient way to crush a rebellion, but it could not calculate a solution for the injustice that had caused it. The day the rebels breached the outer walls of Chang'an, Master Wei summoned you to the center of the workshop. He was impossibly old, a ghost in human form, his breath shallow. "The mandate is lost," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the distant roar of the approaching battle. "A new dynasty will rise from the ashes, but it will be born of fire and steel, not of harmony and light. This knowledge, it is too powerful for an age of chaos. In the hands of a tyrant, it would be the ultimate tool of oppression. It must not survive." To destroy the Ling Xuan Pan felt like murdering a god. It felt like blinding the eye of heaven. "Master, we could hide it. We could preserve the knowledge." He shook his head, a slow, final gesture. "The knowledge is not in the object. It is in the mind. There is no one to pass it to. The world is no longer worthy of it. Our purpose was to maintain balance. The balance is broken. Our time is over." He instructed you in the final, terrible ritual, the unmaking. It was a process as precise and sacred as the device's creation. Using the same tools you used for cleaning, you were to dismantle the lattice, piece by piece. Each crystal, he explained, had a nullification point, a single, precise spot on its surface. A sharp tap on that point, with a small, tuned bronze hammer, would not shatter the crystal, but would cause its internal structure to collapse, turning the perfectly clear prism into a milky, opaque, and useless piece of quartz. As the sounds of fighting grew louder in the streets of the capital, you began the heart-wrenching task. You worked with tears streaming down your face, your hands moving with the steady precision he had taught you. One by one, you tapped each crystal. The dragon's eye, the weaver's shuttle, the celestial river. With each soft click of the hammer, a word from the divine grammar was erased. A piece of the cosmic mind went dark. It was a quiet, methodical apocalypse, a silent Ragnarok happening in a hidden room while the world outside burned. When only the primary refraction lens remained, Master Wei placed his thin, cold hand on your shoulder. "Break it," he commanded, "and then you must flee. Go south. Become a simple scholar, a village teacher. Forget what you have seen here. That is the only way to protect the future from the burden of the past." You looked at him, at this man who had been your father, your teacher, your entire world. He would not be leaving. His life was bound to the workshop. He would die with his secrets. With a final, agonizing sob, you brought the bronze hammer down. The last crystal turned milky and inert. The Ling Xuan Pan, the miracle of the Han, the ghost of technology, was dead. It was now just a frame of bronze filled with cloudy, worthless stones. You took one last look at your master, bowed deeply, and fled through a secret passage he had shown you, a tunnel that led under the city walls to the wilderness beyond. As you ran, you did not look back. You carried nothing with you but the clothes on your back and a mind filled with an impossible, unwritten scroll, a history of a future that had been lost, a memory of a language that was now unspoken. The Ministry of Works and the secret workshop within it were reduced to ash and rubble. The story of the imperial calibrators and their numinous calculation plate vanished, surviving only as fragmented whispers in obscure texts dismissed by later historians as fanciful legends, the boasts of a fallen dynasty. You lived out your days as you were told, a quiet, anonymous teacher in a remote southern village. You never spoke of what you had seen. You never wrote down the symbols of the Lingwen. You let the greatest technological secret in human history fade into oblivion. But every night, when you looked up at the stars, you did not see just points of light. You saw the silent, intricate dance of a divine calculation. You saw the ghost of the light, and you wept for the harmony that the world had lost, and for the terrible, beautiful secret that you would carry, alone, to your grave. We've just walked through a history that was never written. We've seen the birth, life, and deliberate death of a technology that could have changed the world. We followed the last calibrator as he fled into the silence of history, taking the greatest secret of the Han Dynasty with him to his grave. But secrets, even when they are perfectly kept, sometimes leave echoes. Faint, distorted whispers that modern science can hear, even if it can't understand the language. Tonight, in our final chapter, we're stepping out of the legend and into the lab. We're joining the archaeologists and scientists of our own time who stumbled upon a ghost and have been trying to name it ever since. This is the end of the story. The final piece of the puzzle. The quiet, frustrating, and beautiful postscript to the legend of the vanished crystal calculators. The year is 1998. The location is Xi'an, the modern city that sits atop the ruins of the once great Han capital, Chang'an. An international team of archaeologists is working under the relentless summer sun, excavating a newly uncovered sector of the old imperial administrative complex. The work is slow, hot, and meticulous. They are sifting through centuries of dust, cataloguing broken pottery, tracing the faint foundations of long-vanished wooden buildings. Their current dig site is believed to be a records office, perhaps a sub-archive for the Ministry of Works. Expectations are modest. They hope to find preserved bamboo slips, official seals, maybe some bronze tools. They are not expecting to find the heart of a forgotten world. A ground-penetrating radar survey reveals a strange void beneath the packed earth foundation of the main building. It's a perfectly circular chamber, deep underground, with no visible entrance. It is not a tomb. The shape is wrong, and there are no spirit paths or ceremonial mounds. It appears to be a sealed room, a time capsule that somehow survived the sacking and burning of Chang'an 2 millennia ago. Excitement ripples through the team. A hidden chamber, untouched by looters or the ravages of time, is the dream of every archaeologist. They spend a week carefully excavating, clearing away the layers of compacted earth and rubble until they find it, a heavy stone slab sealed with a mortar so hard it seems to have fused with the rock itself. It takes a team of 6 men and a system of levers to move it. As the slab scrapes aside, a rush of cool, stale air escapes from the darkness below, smelling of ancient dust, cold stone, and ash. The world she enters is one of absolute silence and profound mystery. It is a circular room, just as the radar predicted. The walls are smooth, plastered stone, blackened with soot from a great fire, but otherwise intact. High above, the domed ceiling has collapsed inward, but the central oculus, the round opening to the sky, is still clearly visible. The floor is covered in a thick, uniform layer of fine, grey ash. But it's the contents of the room that defy all explanation. Along the curved walls are the melted, skeletal remains of what must have been incredibly complex bronze instruments. Warped arms, fused gears, and concave discs that look like the mirrors of some advanced astronomical device. Fragments of black lacquer on the walls still bear faint traces of silver leaf, depicting star charts of a precision that seems centuries ahead of their time. This was a laboratory, a secret observatory. And in the very center of the room, on the shattered remains of a black stone table, sits the enigma. It is a rectangular bronze frame, warped and half-melted from the intense heat of the fire that consumed the city. But inside the frame is not empty space. It is filled with a collection of strange, milky white stones. There are hundreds of them, each one shaped with an unnatural precision, perfect prisms, smooth cylinders, intricately faceted lenses. Yet they are all completely opaque, their internal structure clouded and chaotic. They look like quartz, but of a purity that is geologically impossible. The team is baffled. The scientific analysis only deepens the mystery. The stones are indeed a form of crystal, but they have been subjected to some kind of uniform, high-frequency stress that has fundamentally altered their internal lattice, rendering them optically useless. The shapes are clearly artificial, designed for manipulating light, yet the material itself is incapable of doing so. It's a paradox. It's like finding a perfectly crafted sword made of soft, unbaked clay. It's a tool that negates its own purpose. The team logs it in their records as a possible ceremonial object of unknown function, or, more fancifully, a failed alchemical apparatus. They call the site the Scholar's Folly. In a corner of the room, sitting upright against the wall in a cross-legged meditative posture, are the remains of a human skeleton. The bones are those of an incredibly old man. There are no signs of violence. He was not killed by the invaders. The forensic analysis concludes that he died of smoke inhalation. He had remained in the room, calm and still, as the world above him burned to the ground. He had chosen to die here. He was guarding this place, or perhaps mourning it. Dr. Thorne spends the next 20 years of her life obsessed with the circular room. She publishes papers, presents at conferences, and theorizes endlessly. She argues that the melted bronze instruments and the star charts point to a school of Han Dynasty astronomers whose genius was lost to history. The bizarre, opaque crystals, she concludes, must have been a symbolic representation of the heavens. The stars and planets rendered in stone. It is a brilliant, logical, and well-respected theory, and it is completely wrong. She will never know the truth. She will never know that the crystals were once as clear as captured starlight. She will never know that the strange, geometric symbols they find etched on the broken stone table were not decoration, but a divine mathematical language. She will never know that the melted bronze arms were designed to direct a beam of pure sunlight, turning the device into a living engine of calculation. She will never know that the old man in the corner was not just a scholar, but the last guardian of a secret so profound it could have steered the course of human history. The physical proof of its existence sits in a climate-controlled museum vault, labeled, catalogued, and completely misunderstood. It is a ghost that science can touch but never grasp. He erased the knowledge so completely that even when its remnants were rediscovered, the truth remained invisible. He sacrificed a world of technological marvels to protect the world from the burden of its power. A silent testament to the idea that the greatest secrets are not lost to time, but are sometimes, Out of wisdom and sorrow, return to it.